I see so many people setting up their Excels in a way that kills the productivity of their team. And in this video, I'm going to give you 4 examples of those, and I'm going to tell you how to overcome them. Hi, my name is Zac Parsons, and I have over a decade worth of experience helping teams like yours reduce time waste and uncertainty. Okay, so mistake number 1 is using the same data structure across multiple sheets. And by data structure, I mean the same column headers in multiple sheets. A prime example of this is starting a new sheet for each calendar month. Now, why is this an issue? Well, the moment that you separate it out, it becomes really hard to analyze your data in one place because all of your data is separated all over, so it's just really hard to perform any detailed analysis. So what should you do instead? Just add a new column. New column, put it month or whatever it is you're wanting to separate out into sheets. And that way, all of the data is all in one place. It's really nice and easy to analyze. And if you want to then isolate, in this example, by month, then you can use a filter, or you could use a pivot table if you want to do it that way. Trust me, you're going to save so much time in the long run if you don't separate out into sheets, just add a column instead. Mistake number 2 is not using tables. Now, if you don't know what a table is, then you might be thinking, yeah, but Excel's just one big table. What's the issue? Like, yes and no. So yeah, a spreadsheet is a structure of a table. However, if you go to the Insert tab, you can insert a structure called a table, which essentially is a lovely little container and protector of your data. So that all of your data is in one little box or table, if you will. So, you know when you insert a row and your formulas don't auto-fill down? Yeah, tables will solve that problem. You know when you add data to the bottom of a column and your formulas don't include it? Yeah, tables will solve that problem too. You know when you scroll and you lose track of what the column headers are? Yep, table will solve that problem. I know frozen panes will also solve that problem, but that's a bit naff, to be perfectly honest with you. Also, so you know when you add a column and the existing sort doesn't extend to the new column, so you end up with a mismatch of data? Yeah, tables will solve that problem as well. So please, I beg of you, just use tables. You also get the benefit of solid naming definitions, so it's easier to actually create formulas because the names are all there. Please look into formulas, look into how to use tables and use them. Mistake number 3 is using VLOOKUP. Now, bear with me. Please just bear with me on this. I have some bad news for you. VLOOKUP is outdated and is just a bit shit. Now, the reason that I don't like VLOOKUP is that you always have to make sure that your lookup column is on the far left, which it often isn't. And if you add a column between your lookup column and your return column, you're in for an absolute world of pain, especially if the adjacent column has similar numbers that you don't notice. Now, what should you do instead? Excel, I was going to say recently, but it's actually not recently anymore. So there's really no excuse for using VLOOKUP anymore. Excel recently introduced a thing called XLOOKUP. It's a much better formula. I would recommend using it. Or if you want to put on your big boy pants, I would recommend, or your big girl pants, whatever, I would recommend using index match as well. For most things, I just use XLOOKUP nowadays, and just because it does the job pretty well. And finally, mistake number 4 is using Excel when you shouldn't be using Excel in the first place. Now, I guess this is a bit of a controversial one, saying to just not use Excel in a video about mistakes in Excel, but I think it's a really important one to cover because Excel just simply isn't built for a lot of the use cases that I regularly see it being used for. So for example, some of the things that it can't handle are project plans, are task management, anything that should be in a Kanban board, please don't put it in Excel. Anything that requires a detailed version history, it's just so painful when you have a single cell and you're trying to work out the version history of that single cell. Just wildly not fun. So don't get me wrong, Excel's flexibility can be really good when you're trying to figure out like what data you want to store, and sometimes it can be the minimum viable version of something. But I see far too many instances where Excel is being used where instead dedicated software would serve your purposes just way more. So as a general rule of thumb, if using Excel is the hardest part about using Excel, then you might need dedicated software, which is often free. So to put that in another way, if actually using the software is the hardest part about doing an activity, so if using the Excel is the hardest part of your task management, then you should probably move your task management away from Excel and into a dedicated piece of software. And I'm not going to say which one, that's completely up for you to decide. So there you go, that's 4 things I see in Excel all of the time, which I find absolutely destroys the productivity of the teams who use those Excels. If you have any examples that you'd want to share, pop them in the comments. This is also a very different piece of content to what I usually do, so if you think this is the way that this channel should go, let me know in the comments before. If you have any other topics that you want me to cover on team productivity, again, put them in the comments, and hopefully see you in the next video.